Welcome back to Project Independence in You at 88.1 FM, WCWP.org, Senior Talk Radio. I'm your host, Rebecca Miller, along with Otto Lohse and Kristina Liu. Kristina Liu, the radio show producer, pulls this show together every week. Tremendous guests, just like Natalie Ryan, who was really terrific. A lot of information with the Nature Conservancy and, talking about all these green initiatives and just a lot of information. I'm sure we'll have her back because there's grants, there's funding, there's things that, people can apply for and become part of and have things done. So, she was great. And now we're going to start off with Talk of the Town. I know that our guest, our second guest, who is Wayne Wink, the town clerk, will be joining us a little bit later. So, Kristina, what is going on in the town?
I mean, there's a lot going on. First of all, I think the first segment was really great. And, I think from it, it's really little things everyone can do. And like in a perfect world, obviously, we wish we could all walk around and do everything, to help keep things green. But I think it's these little tips, and there was a lot of little golden nuggets, which we love. So that was really wonderful.
Relating it to the town, I think the town of North Hempstead, because of Judy probably, has been very aware of the environment. And my thing, I got a simplistic look at this whole thing. Whether you believe in climate change or you don't believe in climate change, all right? The facts are there are things that are going on. And there are things that we individually can do something about to make this place stay as a nice place. It's a nice place that we live in here, the world. And as long as we don't screw it up, So forget whether you agree with the scientists or disagree with the scientists. The bottom line is you can help keep it clean. You don't have to throw bottles out the window. You don't have to throw all your food wrappers out. Put them somewhere in the garbage so they can be taken care of in a proper manner. That's one that always gets me. I don't get it,
I know. What's horrible too is that there's, especially now, the amount of masks and gloves that you see just lying everywhere, and that's just like horrible because, on top of that, like who wants to pick up like your dirty mask? Like it's really just like a health issue too, and you're right, Otto, because it's those little things that are just, it can be avoided.
It's just a mentality that revolves around me as opposed to what can I do to make this a better place.
Yeah. It's about being a responsible human being and acknowledging that your actions can impact someone else and the greater good. And just to make one or two small changes could actually impact in a positive way instead of a negative way. I mean, there's no excuse for masks to be, not to be thrown out properly, especially because, they could contain germs and things like that. I've actually seen, I don't know, it could be over here in Farmingdale, but I have noticed things, people are more responsible. I see a lot more things going out, being recycled in my neighborhood. Even what Natalie was saying, I have certainly witnessed many more people taking walks, cooking, not ordering in, not bringing in as much, packaging and things like that. So I've seen some things. That's why I kind of was like, I am very interested to find out the impact, what we can learn, not just what is the answer, 18.4, centimeters of the ozone layer. No, but look at how we lived and how it had a positive impact on our climate. And like, why can't we keep some of these things going? Instead
of. It's so true. It's very true. And I was even thinking, because not this summer, the summer before, when we were kind of in the height of things, my family and I, we went out to Montauk for like for a weekend. And you noticed so much more wildlife around and in the ocean.
Yes.
And we were sitting there, because we go out there every year. And like this year too, we saw some, but, it was really prevalent last year, so there was all these whales and dolphins, and it was like you were sitting there like, oh my God, so I really believe too, listen, don't quote me, I'm not, a marine biologist or anything, but it did seem to have some kind of correlation to like the calmer nature of things that were going, not that many people were in there, so it was a lot of different factors. And, I agree with you. It was, we laughed at work because when we were working and a lot of people were still, at home and stuff. I know Becca and I were like, oh my God, it was like a breeze getting to work. There was like no traffic and you're like, oh, this is so lovely. And now I was laughing listening to the two of you because I agree. I'm like, the traffic is like back and I agree, like not worse,
Well, there were no school buses either when COVID was going on.
Exactly. That people were going to work.
Schools have a lot to do with it, really.
Yeah. And Kristina, one of the things I have to tell you that I noticed too in Otto is my backyard this summer and last summer too. It started is like a bird sanctuary.
Yeah. So me too.
I sit in my backyard and
it
is unbelievable. I'm
it's so true.
It's always been like that in my area, but
me too. It's definitely, you're right, because I laugh. I said, I walk out of the house, I was like, it feels like a Disney movie. I'm like a Disney princess. There's like things that are like chirping and like the squirrel. Because I laugh because I just said that to Jay last weekend because it was just all these little like animals like running around like free and like so many birds. Yeah.
So many birds.
Same here.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, you hope like, listen, maybe, that little kind of pause situation that, we were in did have, unfortunately, things kind of, gear back up. But, hopefully it had some kind of
lasting
effect, who knows.
Yeah.
And as far as, and when she was saying, the outdoor and the appreciating Long Island, that's something I've always liked to be outside. But I do realize that since, the whole COVID thing, my husband and I are way more like into outdoor things.
Yeah.
There has been a different level of appreciation. And I think it's also because it's just, we would do so many indoor activities and whatnot that you didn't have time to do certain outdoor things. But like that really has been a shift for us. So we are really way more. We just got like a projector from Amazon and, fires because we wanted to set up a whole little thing. And we were trying to find like an affordable way to do it in our backyard because we're always outside. And Jay was like, it'd just be great to like be able to like just watch TV outside.
Right.
So
I have an answer for you.
Huh?
I have an answer for you.
We got everything ready. We're all done.
I did the projector thing where you have to take it from your laptop.
Yeah, I have a Fire Stick.
But you can now buy antennas that cost like $40. I just did it for the Jet game outside. And it's unbelievable. You get 80 channels that you can see outside. And I have it in the garage now.
Yeah, because we got a Fire Stick, which was $20. The projector we got really good reviews, and it was literally, it came with a screen. We don't even need the screen because we have a giant like white fences everywhere. But it was $60 something, and we were like shocked, the two of us, because we were like, all right, let's just give it a go. We'll see what happens. And it was like so clear, and we have Netflix and all the things that we use. So tonight, actually, my mom, because we're big Halloween family. My mom and my brother's coming over because the new Halloween movie came out. So we're going to stream that in the backyard. We're going to do like a little fire. Of course, I bought like snacks because everything has to be like an event, like you're at the movie theater. But, it was like something like that, where it's like nice to be outside. And the two of us were always out walking, and we're way more likely to now explore little hidden parks and things that are on the island. Because I said to Jay, I said, listen, there's a lot that's comes with living on Long Island and New York, cost wise and stuff. But there's a lot of beautiful things that you really need to take advantage of because you're here, and we have access to, beaches and parks and woods. And, there's all these different little things that you can see that are absolutely breathtaking, so it's definitely, I know in my own life I could speak of, like that has certainly become a shift. And it just feels good to like get out, get some air. And the weather has been so lovely, call it climate or whatever it might be, but it's working out nicely, for right now while I'm trying to be outside. I'm not like bundled up. So it's definitely, I think that's something that I certainly have, taken with me.
Yeah. So, I think, like there have the positive things or habits or new things that we've gotten because of being home, being kind of like living at home and things. And we notice stuff more too. You're a little bit more observant about things because, you've been home for so long. And, listen, it was very intense. It's a very emotional and scary time. And we all have family members. I don't think that there is anyone who hasn't been impacted by someone who passed from COVID or had COVID, or, the fears that people had from COVID, or you're caring for someone with a compromised immune system. So, I mean, it's like, that also happened too. And you just become more aware. So, I mean, coming out of it, I'm amazed that people would litter, would do things. I mean, you just got such a more sense of self and responsibility during the whole time, we all have our stories of how it impacted us, how our lives changed, our family members, how it affected other people. And, I don't know, it's just, it's still surreal that we've all been through it to some degree, I mean, look at us, we're still on Zoom, we're still, being cautious.
I have a feeling we're going to be on Zoom for quite a while. My opinion.
Listen, but but like as we say this every show, this frankly, it works, right? Yes, it's great. Right. It's lovely to be in person, but this format, we say it, all of us can, I think, agree. It certainly actually made the radio show stronger for a lot of reasons. Obviously, it'd be great if we could be, sitting, all in a room together, right. But you didn't lose anything, from it. And plus the guests that we were able to get really have been wonderful. Speaking for someone that has to schedule it, it's certainly the Zoom format made life a lot easier in scheduling and timing wise of things. Yeah. So,
one other thing that we learn, and I definitely have, is I take very little for granted. So my life was always very busy, teaching, working, the kids, blah, blah, blah. And, I go out on the weekends with my friends and to these places. And it just, we're in New York on Long Island, hopping into the city, having all these things at our fingertips, entertainment wise. And when you didn't have it for so long, and then you go, it's like a different, universe. If I go to a music outdoor venue now, it's so much more intense, and everyone's so happy to be there. So, it created a real appreciation for things that, maybe we all took for granted, too. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think as a society, and we talked earlier about way back, I think as a society, there is a problem, not with what the little group we're talking here, but there is a problem of taking a lot of things for granted. We are, maybe COVID took a little of it out of it, but we're a pretty spoiled society. We take for granted water. There's a lot of places in this planet that they don't have water. They can't get water. They're drinking filthy water. They're drinking water that they cleaned in. Food. We have more food than we know what to do with, even under the worst of times. There's just so many things. And I think, how do I put this nicely? But I think that as a society, we got to get a little bit better as a group of realizing that we have it pretty good here, even though we have stuff that we don't necessarily agree with. And there's a lot of bad stuff going on, don't get me wrong. But compared to the world, we're in pretty good shape. And that includes the basics, like having a bed or, being able to sleep. When we see, whether you're pro or con, but the borderline stuff, and you see these families trying to come in here, why? Because they live in a place where gangs are marching up and down the street. People are there with guns or, doing whatever to make your life miserable. We don't have that. We're lucky. We really are. And I think sometimes we just have to sit back as a society, in our world particularly, and really, get a better handle on the fact that, hey, we are blessed. We have a lot.
You're
And
right. And listen, it's all about, it taps into our, segments last week about just being mindful and practicing gratitude. I mean, I think people like laugh, when they hear, oh, okay, yeah, like, sure, you practice, there'll be all these jokes and, memes and stuff about it. But it's really, it's like a sense of self and a practice that it's more than just saying like, oh my God, I'm so thankful for, blah, blah, blah. It's really internalizing that, and the benefits are serious, and it's important. And I think coming, listen, we're still in a weird time. I don't even know, like, we're in this weird limbo. Like, I feel like I'm in like a dream sequence all the time, but we're not in the height of where we once were, and the uncertainty is, different, so it's an important thing. And that is actually on the cover of our Pioneer that will be, hopefully, I got the postage email, so hopefully it means that it's going to be in homes sometime next week. But we actually have that on the cover, because I think people hear these words, but you're not really sure what it means, or, it's like these buzzwords and whatnot. But it's just like some tips on how to do it, and they're easy. It's not like it's some crazy difficult thing to do. You can just by simply thinking in your head. What I love that it always says is to really like write it down, because and I think that this, because we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, about writing in it, because it's like getting it out of your head and onto a paper. And that's probably why I have like notes for like everything possible. Like, even I'll have it on my phone, but just the idea of writing my to-do list or my shopping list, and I just like to like cross that off the list. There's nothing like actually like crossing it off with your like hand. Like you could like check it off on like your iPhone, but not the same kind of satisfaction. So I think that, it says, to just think, it's like 3 things, right? So every day, and it could be something so small, it doesn't have to be some life-changing event. But by doing that, you're like, your brain is releasing things, to appreciate, everything that you do have as Otto.
Right.
It's easy
You're
to take
taking an action.
Yes.
Well, we actually have to take the action of a break right now. We will be right back. This is Project Independence in You on 88.1 FM, WCWP.org. We'll be speaking with Town Clerk Wayne Wink, and we will be right back.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
Welcome back to Project Independence in You here at 88.1 FM, WCWP.org, Senior Talk Radio. So we're happy to have our next guest today, Wayne Wink, who is North Hempstead Town Clerk, and also a frequent co-host too on Project Independence in You. So welcome.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Great to see you. I know we have a lot of questions about the clerk's office and senior services with the clerk's office, but I know that you just came from an event over at North Hempstead Beach Park, and we'd love to hear about it. It's the Vietnam Veterans Moving Wall. Yes. So how did it go? How was the turnout?
Well, it was a beautiful ceremony this morning. We had a couple hundred people there for what they call the opening ceremony of the moving wall. For those who have been to Washington, D.C., and have seen the permanent marble Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall, right. The one that starts off at a point and then becomes very, very large in the center, and it's in the shape of a V for the beginning of the war, the end of the war, and whatnot. It has over 59,000 names on it. The moving wall is an actual traveling replica of the wall, with the same 59,000 names on it, in the same order, and it goes around the country in an effort to remind people of what had gone on in the Vietnam era and how many of our veterans not only suffered and died in the war, but how many of our veterans really came back and didn't get the respect they deserved. And so this memorial, hopefully this moving wall, reminds people not only of those who made the ultimate sacrifice, but of those who sacrificed their youth, their health, in many cases their families, in an effort to do our nation's bidding. And at the end of the day, I'm hoping that that this wall will be that reminder to so many people.
How long will that wall be there?
It will be there it started this morning, and it'll be there. The closing ceremony is on Sunday at 3:00 in the afternoon. So it'll be there over 48 hours, a little bit more than 48 hours, but it will be open 24 hours a day from now until when the closing ceremony takes place. So people will always have the opportunity to go and to remember, even in the middle of the night, quite frankly.
Right.
So it's in North Hempstead Beach Park.
It is. It's in the north lot, and it's a great place for people to be able to go. And you can either go in the middle of the day when things are busy, or you can go at night and just have have the solace and the silence of being there almost all by yourself. So.
Wow. Do you know, is that moving wall, is that something that's local, or does it go all over the country?
It goes all over the country, I understand. I understand much of the time it's down south. I believe it's gone out west. And but this is the first time we've had the good fortune of having it here in North Hempstead.
Right. What a
So there
perfect
is
location
a
for it,
wall.
too.
It's not.
It is, right. It is
one
a
wall that goes all over.
Yeah.
Right.
It's put together in each section of the wall. They identify who the people are listed on the wall, so you can easily at the very beginning go and find the person you're looking for, and they'll tell you which plate it's on, in which location, and you'll have the opportunity to go right there. You can do the chalk, the chalk things, so that you can actually commemorate it with the name of the person or the people you're there to see. And some of the stories I heard just today were just amazing in the fact that they were so moving. One gentleman was telling a story about how two men in his platoon that he went back and tried to save, they were killed in action, and they were literally lying on top of each other. And lo and behold, at the wall today, he said their names are one above the other. So they're literally together in eternity as a result of this, this wall. So,
we hear a number 59,000. That's a lot of numbers. And
yes, it is.
What always gets me is they're not just numbers; they're names. They would have been grandparents by now. There's a whole lot of people that were impacted.
Yep.
And the sad thing, as you pointed out at the beginning, they did not get the recognition.
You're right.
It was a war that had a lot of hurdles within our own country.
Right.
And it's sad. You sacrifice and you think you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's just sad.
Yeah. Right. And we know that the average age of a Vietnam soldier during that war was 19 years old. Whereas in most other wars, it was much older, 26 or more in some cases. So you literally had people who had yet to begin their adult lives, and many of them never had the chance to do that.
And we on the show, a bunch of veterans, we've had a project where we interviewed veterans, and there was a lot of Vietnam vets. And, what always struck me was that they always thought, you come home from war, there's a parade, there's a whole thing, for you. And that's not what they got,
Right.
And it was such a shocking thing. I mean, and one guy was spit on. I mean, there were these heart-wrenching stories. So I think it's so beautiful that North Hempstead is showcasing this and having this in the town. I think is so special.
Yeah.
Just for the families and for the people that were affected, and for people who just want to pay their respects too. I think it's certainly a wonderful thing.
Well, frankly, I think it's sad because every war that we've been in since World War II. I think people came home, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. There's not a lot of hoop-de-doo going on for any of them who came back. World War II, I was a kid. They used to have block parties. There was a big thing when people came back from World War II. I don't know. I think we kind of take for granted the fact that these people are out there hopefully trying to defend our way of life.
You're right. You're right. I mean, there was a day, I do remember when I was a child growing up in Uniondale, that there was a parade for a returning veteran. But even then, I do remember there was a lot of antipathy about it. And, it was just, it was a terrible time. And a couple of months ago, I had the good fortune of being involved with a street renaming in the village of Williston Park. And it was for a Vietnam veteran who had perished in the war. And he had, I think, 9 brothers and sisters who were all there. And, it was one of those things that, we were reminded of the fact that he was never properly honored in his time. But, I hate to say better late than never because it sounds a little cliched. But the irony is that, now he was being honored, 50 years after his death. So.
Right. And I guess that's what this moving wall is doing is, just for people who aren't going to have the opportunity to go to DC, they can, memorialize these heroes when it comes into their area. I'm so glad that it's open and people can go, the public can come, anyone in the town can take a look at it. I mean, it's such a wonderful memorial. And thank you for telling us all about it. It sounds really moving.
Yeah, and just one quick thought. It's a memorial for those who died, but I think it also has a big impact for those who, I know several, who did not die, who were in that war and who now feel like there's at least some recognition being given. And they've been living with this anchor, if you will, pretty much since they got out of the service.
Yeah.
So I think for them, not just the people who died, but the people who are here, it has an impact, which is important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, the town really does great things too. So this was just another one. And again, thanks for filling us in. And, I don't know how long we have you here. So I'm interested to talk to you a lot about the clerk's office too. We talk all the time when, you've been on the show a lot, you've been a Project Independence supporter for so long and all that. But some of the things we notice and which is fact is that the senior population is growing. So people are living longer. It's not unusual. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, when someone's grandma was 90 or forget about 100. I don't even know if I knew of any local people. They were so old and I don't know if it's because I'm getting old, but it's true that people are living longer and they're still active and, even in the hundreds and, there's a lot. And of course, because of the baby boom population, our senior population on the other end is exponentially, growing. Right. I'm curious, I don't even know if you have the numbers, but how have you noticed that at all? Is it time yet that the clerk's office have you seen an increase in senior focused things that people would go? And part 2 is, are seniors getting married? Do you see a lot of marriages?
I've done quite a few. I've done some May, November romance marriages. I've done a number of couples who have met late in life, and this is their second time around. And it's a wonderful thing. I had one gentleman who was, I believe, 99 years old. He married a 49-year-old woman. And we have to make sure that people are fully aware of what they're doing and that they're doing so willingly. That's really the key. Any marriage, for that matter, any ceremony, always involves recognizing that the couple are there voluntarily and they know what they're getting into. So occasionally there's a situation where someone will come in and it may not be a very good day for them, and they may not really be able to articulate well, why they want to get married again or something. But, in those rare occasions, I've had the opportunity to sometimes sit down with people and have conversations. And in one case, that 99-year-old man, he was a union man, the oldest living member of his union. And we got to talking about his job, and I said to her, do you want to get married? And he said, I don't know where I'd be without her, and she's been wonderful to me. And at that moment, it was like, okay, I don't need to ask any more questions. He knows exactly what he's doing, and so we do try to make sure that people aren't getting taken advantage of, because we know that does happen from time to time, but. When you're able to articulate why you want to get married again, even after all these years, it's no one should stand in the way then.
Right. And you do a lot of the renewing of the vow. So you've had where people have come back and renewed their vows after 50 or 60 years.
As a matter of fact, that was the last major event we were able to do in 2020 before COVID. And of course, we weren't able to do it in 2021, though we did do a lawn sign campaign where we allowed people to request lawn signs to be put out saying that, a loving couple lives here and love springs eternal, which I thought was a wonderful thing. We were literally sticking it in the snow on people's front lawns.
I love it. So great.
But it was a nice way to remind people that even in the middle of a pandemic where we're all being told to separate from each other and stay apart, love does spring eternal. So,
today is our 43rd wedding anniversary.
Otto!
And that's the second time around. I was married to my first wife who passed away for 17 years. So theoretically, it's my 60th wedding anniversary.
There you go. That's it.
Wow.
That's it. So you're pretty good at this by now.
Happy anniversary. Today's my son's 23rd birthday.
I'll be lucky if my wife allows me to get to 19 next month.
That's great.
21st birthday? You said, Rebecca, your son?
23rd.
My youngest son, 23rd. Yep. My baby, my 6 foot whatever baby. He's 23.
It's funny how it goes. I have a grandson now. He's 34, and they do move right along.
They do. They just keep getting older, and I'm not. So
No, I know.
So weird.
You said you're getting old. You never use the word old. You always say older.
Older. Right. There you go.
We can convince ourselves of a lot of things. So
yes, and believe me, you have to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's 50 is the new 28. I heard. Recently.
It's true.
How's that?
It is true.
Well, we actually have to take a quick break on that note, on that youthful note. We will be right back with Town Clerk Wayne Wink. You've been listening to Project Independence and You here at Senior Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be right back.
WCWP is your home for great music and great conversation. You'll find all that and more on WCWP.org. Listen live on the web, check out the lineup, subscribe to podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest station events. Get in touch with us and let us know if you like what you're hearing. And find out how you can support or get involved at the only community public radio station serving Nassau's North Shore. Plus, sign up to get a free bumper sticker. It's all online at WCWP.org.
Welcome back to Project Independence and You here at 88.1 FM, WCWP.org, Senior Talk Radio. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Otto Lohse and Kristina Lou, and our guest, Town Clerk of North Hempstead, Wayne Wink. So welcome back.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's always great to be on the show with you, Wayne. You're a great guest and a frequent co-host, too.
That's
just
dangerous.
Curious. What's that?
I said that's dangerous.
I know. Okay, Otto. Well, no one tops Otto.
Job jeopardy.
That's right, Otto. We just never leave you.
So one of the things that, we talk about with every guest, whether they're with the town or an agency or something like that, is, we can't help for the times, where we're kind of in that moving back to normal phase of COVID and the pandemic and everything. And, Kristina and I were chatting a lot about the fact that we work from home for a good portion, and that we're so unused to all this traffic. I mean, you have to really adapt. But I know that for you at the clerk's office, there was no working at home, that you all were pretty much up and running throughout the whole time. What was that like?
Well, it was a little eerie at first. We closed down because a couple people in the office did contract COVID, myself included, and so we were closed for about 2.5 weeks. But once I got a clean bill of health, and we started having conversation. I mean, we never stopped having conversations with our staff,
right?
Because some of our most vital functions are things that we, quite frankly, have to perform no matter what the circumstances. And unfortunately, one of the major ones are death certificates. And we saw such a spike during COVID, the number of death certificates we had to issue. So that work had to get done. And we were able to have some of our staff working remotely, dealing with birth and death and birth certificates, because both of them are vitally important. Particularly when a child has to get on health insurance, we need to make sure that the birth certificate is issued promptly in order for the insurance coverage to begin. So those two functions in particular were of vital importance, and we were able to do them remotely. But for the most part, we continued to be in touch with our staff throughout that 2-week period, and eventually we got to the point where we said, okay, can we reopen? Let's see. Who's willing to come in part-time? And the town had made arrangements, by the way, for everyone to be paid, whether or not the office was open. That was just part of the pandemic response. But once people started coming in, we were bringing them in part-time, 2-3 days a week. Then we were bringing everyone in together so they could get used to. After, of course, we put up all the PPE, and after we provided masks and gloves to everyone, we acclimated people to coming back. And my staff, most of them were very, very quick to be willing to come back. And they kept themselves and they kept each other safe. And so really, over a couple months, we expanded hours. We started allowing the public to come back in by appointment only. And by the beginning of June, we were open from 9 to 4:45 every day of the week, and we haven't stopped since. So, the office kept running as it needed to, but really, I mean, the work that my staff did to be comfortable enough to come back and then to be comfortable enough to expand their work hours and whatnot was really tremendous. And I give them all the credit in the world for the fact that in the face of a pandemic, that at the time, many of us didn't even really fully understand all the causes, the implications and whatnot. I mean, when I came down with COVID, it was at a time when we were being told, don't wear masks. When my wife and I came down with it, they told us that they didn't have enough tests for us. Yep. Right. So we ended up, one of us got tested, my wife got tested. We waited 8 days for a result. Now you can get it in 15 minutes. Right. It was a completely different world at that point. You just didn't know what you were in for. And thankfully, our case was very mild. But for so many people, the fear of the unknown was really overwhelming. But my staff was great about it. And they said, look, we want to start coming back. We want to get the work under control again. And we were able to do it safely and securely. And they've been tremendous. They never missed a beat. So, I thank them for everything they've done. And I know that, in the history of the town clerk's office, and the workers in the town clerk's office will be known for having done such an outstanding job in some very difficult times.
Absolutely. Well, I hope they're listening to the show. To hear this.
Wait, do you still have to make an appointment, like if a resident to go to the clerk's office, or can you just walk in?
We try to do it by appointment when it comes to birth, death, and marriage records, simply because we're trying to make sure that we don't have 25 people standing in the lobby waiting to be next in line. We try to ensure that people are going to be able to social distance. They're going to be, they're all wearing masks, but at the same time, we try not to crowd people in the lobby. Mm-hmm. And since we share that lobby with the receiver of taxes office, right. This time of year, a lot of people are coming in to pay taxes. So we're doing everything we can to try to make sure that we're not, cramming too many people into too small a space. So we do recommend appointments and we do recommend mail-in requests, but whenever necessary, people can come in and they can make quick arrangement to get what they need.
What about passports?
Yeah, I was going to ask about
we've always done by appointment, and most people know if, prior to the town doing it, if you went to a post office, the post office would have maybe 3 appointments a day, and when they were filled up, you were sent off to another day or sent home without your passport application. The town clerk's office, we've always done by appointment, but we've always been able to maintain that, and we've had a really we've seen a significant upturn in the number of passports that are being issued now. So really? There was a period when the passport agency in whether it was in New York or in Connecticut or anywhere else in the country, they were in some cases 18 weeks behind on applications, but they have redoubled their efforts. So now it's a much more reasonable period of time. And my office has been able to process anyone who comes in. And again, we do ask for appointments, but usually we can fit people in even if they call for the same day.
Wayne, one of my daughters just had an experience in the last couple of days. They were going to go on vacation, and my daughter found out that her passport would expire while she was going. But while in the process, the travel agent told her that her passport wouldn't have been any good because it's 6 months prior to the actual expiration date that it becomes not valid. So she was going to wind up going to the airport on this trip to the Dominican Republic and wind up being turned down. So my question is, how long, first of all, I don't think most people realize that your passport, even though it says it expires December 1st, it really is expired 6 months before that if you want to leave the country. I think that's the hook, right? Yeah.
I think that's really as much a function of the foreign country as it is of the United States rules. But they always suggest that if you're within 6 months of your passport expiring, you should get it renewed.
I never knew that. Yeah. And how long does it take? Like once I go to town hall and clerk's office and I fill out the application, you mentioned some weeks there. What's the typical range right now?
It depends. If you do an expedited, expedited processing, you pay a little extra for it. They will process very quickly. But I do understand. I believe the standard right now is about 8 to 12 weeks. They tell you. So usually it comes on the shorter end or even earlier than 8 weeks. But they give you that range, so that you're not. So that your expectations aren't dashed when you find out that 6 weeks later you don't have your passport yet. So for the most part, they give you a range, and that range has been getting shorter and shorter because they've really caught up on the backlog. But you can imagine during COVID, when so many people were working remotely and whatnot, the passport agencies did fall significantly behind on processing the applications. But they have redoubled their efforts, and it seems like they've gotten back to a fairly normal level of response time.
How long a passport, I think, is like 8 years or something
10
like
years,
that?
I believe it is.
Right. So it sounds like you're almost, in this day and age, when you've got a year left, you ought to start the process of, I mean, I think getting your passport renewed.
Yeah, for a lot of people who, during COVID, had plans to travel and then couldn't do it. It served as an opportunity, I think, for a lot of people to take a look at their passport, realize that it was going to expire in a short period of time, and to process it, to reapply within a reasonable period of time, so that it wouldn't, lapse and then you couldn't go anywhere even if COVID allowed you to.
So,
And how old do you have to be to have a passport? Like, does a baby need?
Actually, a lot of the passports that we issue are for infants in some cases. I mean, especially if you have if you have people who come to Northwell Hospital in particular and give birth and then want to take their child back to their home country, that happens quite frequently, and sometimes. They have to apply for a passport within. I've had children that are days old. They brought in for passport applications, and it's always that's the most complicated. The most complicated thing about that is photographing them.
Right.
Because
that's what I was gonna,
believe it or not, there are significant regulations on what the photographs can look like. How what space needs to be for the head. There can't be extraneous things, like you can't have a parent's hand behind the child's head in the picture. You can't have shadows. Ironically, you can't even smile on a passport. So everybody walks into customs or whatever over these really dour looking pictures, but at the same time, here they are, and that's because that's what the rules require. They love to be smiling. They know they're going on vacation, maybe, but they're not allowed to smile. They're not allowed to wear sunglasses. They're not allowed to wear certain types of clothes. And it's very interesting what is required. There's a science to it, and I know relatively little about this process compared to others in my office because I'm legally not allowed to be the one issuing passports.
Really?
Well, because many years ago, in the aftermath of September 11th, it became clear that there were certain passport offices that were creating fictitious birth records, maybe off of death records, and then creating identities that then they were allowing people to utilize for the purposes of creating a passport. Now, you can imagine in the wake of September 11th, what that could mean if you had people using fraudulent documents to get on airliners in particular, or to do any travel, internationally. So there was a real crackdown on that. And because I'm the registrar for the town and I'm responsible for all the birth and death records that are generated in the town, I cannot help process a passport. So I physically have to be removed from that process. And my chief deputy is actually the one who runs the passport process. I run the registrar function, and he runs the passports. So that's one of the legal obligations. You physically have to segregate the roles. No one who can create a birth record can create a passport, and vice versa.
I think it's two important words there is that you process papers for the passport, but somebody else issues the passport.
Yes. The federal government, the Department of State issues the passport, but we're the go-between, much like the post office has been. But the post office generally has been having fewer and fewer appointments and fewer hours where they've been processing this. So we've been filling the void, and it's one-stop shopping in many cases for us, because in many cases they come to us to get their birth records, which they need in order to apply for a passport. They come to us and they can get photographed, so they don't have to go to the local drugstore or some other facility to go get photos. So they can do all of it right there in my office. And then if it's a new application, we send out the application on their behalf, and they just have to sit back and wait for the Department of State to send it to them. If it's a reapplication, we can help them fill out the forms, but physically they're required to be the ones to mail it back. It's another regulation of the Department of State. But there's so much that is regulated by the federal government in this case. It's funny because so much of I'm the town clerk, but I'm also a fiduciary on behalf of the state of New York when it comes to birth and death and marriage records, even hunting licenses. I represent. Right, I remember. And when it comes to passports, we're a fiduciary on behalf of the federal government. So we answer to a lot of different levels of government, not just the town. It's an interesting part of my job to follow federal regulations on some things, state regulations on others, and town code on other things as well.
Is that true of clerks in all of New York State or federally? Or
That's true of town clerks, city clerks, village clerks. If they provide a passport service, they're really functioning on behalf of the federal government. If they are issuing birth and death records, they're really issuing them on behalf of the state government. And if they're providing other services, like, in my office, we do film permits, we do taxi licenses, tow truck licenses, parade permits, things like that. Those are all a function of the town code. But so much of what we do is a function of either state or federal government. And that would be true for any municipal clerk who does handle those types of work. Many of the villages, for example, in North Hempstead, we have 31 villages. Many of those villages, though, make me their registrar. So if there's a birth or a death that takes place within the village, it comes to my office for processing. There's an economy of scale. There's a competency level that we have that, a village that maybe has one birth every 7 years within their borders, or one death every 5 years in their borders, they may not have that level of competency to deal with the latest technology and to deal with all the procedures the state requires. So many of them will turn that function over to my office, and we're able to do it. And it's just part of our doing business. We are, in fact, the largest registrar on Long Island, and we're one of the probably 5 or 10 largest registrars anywhere in the state of New York. Wow. And there are 1,400 registrars in the state of New York.
Gosh, wow. Well,
so our office handles a tremendous volume of work, and I take pride in it only because the people who work for me do an outstanding job.
Well, like I said before, I hope your staff is listening, because they would love to hear. I'm sure you tell them anyway.
Well, we try to. Yes, we try to all the time.
But it's so nice to hear. And at what a perfect time. I mean, we have to come to an end of Project Independence in You today. Town Clerk Wayne Wink, thank you so much for joining us. A lot of great information on the town clerk's office, and kudos to your staff too. And I know next week is going to be a great show. You've been listening to Project Independence in You here at 88.1 FM, WCWP.org, Senior Talk Radio. Kristina Lou and Otto Lohse, thank you. Dan Cox, and we will see you, and you can hear us next week.